I had spent more than 10 years living on that stretch of land tucked deep into the Colorado hills. Out there, life didn't rush you. Mornings carried the sharp scent of pine and frost, and nights were filled with the distant, lonely calls of coyotes echoing across the ridge. You could go days without seeing another soul, and that was exactly why we chose it. Quiet wasn't just a luxury, it was a way of surviving. Everything changed the day Harlan arrived. His property bordered ours to the west, divided by a narrow creek that cut through the valley like a thin silver vein. The boundary had never been perfectly clear. Old wire fences sagged into the weeds. Wooden markers had long since vanished under snowmelt and flooding. For years, the uncertainty hadn't mattered. But when Harlan showed up 3 years ago, every inch of that unclear land became a battlefield. Harlan wasn't a man who debated, he claimed. If he believed something belonged to him, he took it. Fallen trees, deer carcasses, patches of grass on our side of the creek. We called the sheriff again and again. Every visit ended with the same hollow advice. Try to work it out. Easy to say when you didn't live next door to him. By last fall, we'd had enough. Our friends Rob and Beth, who owned the neighboring plot, decided to make it official. They hired a licensed surveyor named Tom to mark the true property lines and file everything on record. We all agreed, once and for all, this would end it. That afternoon was bitter cold, the kind where daylight fades even though the clock insists it's early. We met where the grass thinned into forest, a quiet clearing so still you could hear your own breathing. Tom arrived wearing an orange vest, carrying tripods and a clipboard that somehow made everything feel serious and final. Rob handed him a folder thick with yellowed deeds pulled straight from county archives. "Let's finish this," Rob said, clapping Tom on the shoulder. Beth folded her arms, her eyes locked on the trees concealing Harlan's cabin. "He was out here last week," she said quietly, rifle on his back. I followed her gaze. Nothing moved, just swaying branches and the faint shimmer of the creek below. Still, the unease settled deep in my stomach. James squeezed my hand. "It'll be fine," he whispered. "We're just measuring dirt." Tom got to work, pacing the land, stretching tape measures that glinted in the weak sunlight. We followed, planting orange flags and forcing ourselves into small talk anything. But Harlan, the air felt wrong. No birds, no wind, just a suffocating silence. After nearly an hour, Tom crouched near the creek and brushed away tangled roots. "Here," he said, "this is the original marker. According to the deed, the boundary runs straight to that boulder." James knelt beside him, his jaw tightening. "That puts Harlan's shed on our land." We laughed short, nervous laughs. Then the woods answered. Branches snapped, slowly, deliberately. A figure stepped from the shadows between the pines. Harlan, his face was flushed, whether from cold or fury, I couldn't tell. A rifle hung from his shoulder, his hands clenched tight. His voice tore across the clearing. "What the hell do you think you're doing on my land?" Rob stepped forward, calm but firm. "We're surveying the boundary. Official record. The paperwork's right here." Harlan spat into the dirt. "Those papers don't mean a damn thing. You've been stealing from me for years." Beth spoke carefully. "The sheriff knows about this. Let's just finish." Harlan's eyes snapped to Tom. "You," he growled, "pack up and leave. Now." Tom raised his hand slightly. "Sir, I'm just doing my job." Harlan stepped closer. His voice dropped low and dangerous. James moved in front of me instinctively. "You think dragging an outsider out here changes anything?" Harlan sneered. Rob held up the papers. "We're not taking anything from you." Harlan laughed a broken, empty sound. "You steal my water, my land, and call the cops on me." The rifle swung down. The muzzle pointed toward the ground, but it was enough. "You're trespassing?" Harlan said quietly. The gunshot split the air. Rob staggered, clutching his chest. Beth screamed. The second shot dropped her beside him. Tom turned to run. The third shot cut him down before he reached the trees. James pulled me behind a boulder as another round ripped bark from a nearby trunk. Gunpowder burned my nose. My ears rang. "Stay here," James whispered. I peeked just enough to see Harlan advancing. Boots crunching, movements slow and deliberate. "You think you can take what's mine?" he shouted. James stood. "Harlan, please." The rifle roared again. James fell into my arms, blood soaking through his shirt. I screamed his name. Harlan stood over us, his voice empty. "You too," I begged. I don't remember the words, only the pain as the bullet tore into my side. The sky spun. He turned and walked away. Silence returned. The creek kept flowing. Rob, Beth, Tom, James, all gone. Somehow, I called 911. I lived. The doctors said the bullet missed my spine by an inch. But every night, when I close my eyes, I see Harlan stepping out of the trees. The silence before the first shot is always louder than the gunfire that followed. We made the offer that very evening, half convinced that if we slept on it, someone else would swoop in and take it first. When the realtor called back to say it was accepted, it felt unreal, like we'd slipped through a crack in fate. By the time we moved in, winter was loosening its grip. Spring crept into the hills slowly. Cold mornings, softened by longer days, and pale sunlight spilling across the land. The house felt like a promise. Boxes were stacked everywhere, half open, and we spent our first week unpacking until midnight, eating takeout on the floor and laughing at how quiet everything was. After years of thin apartment walls and neighbors we never knew, the silence felt luxurious. It felt earned. Every morning, I took my coffee outside barefoot, breathing in damp earth and pine. The creek behind the house curved through the land like a ribbon of glass. Catching the light, I imagined wildflowers along the banks, maybe a bench tucked under the cottonwoods. It felt like the beginning of something steady, safe. That illusion cracked one afternoon. I was unpacking dishes when I glanced out the kitchen window and froze. Two people middle-aged, a man and a woman, were sitting beside the creek, folding chairs, fishing poles, lines in the water. They weren't looking around, weren't acting lost. They were settled, comfortable. I watched for a moment, expecting them to notice me, maybe wave or apologize. They didn't. They behaved as if the land already knew them. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe they'd wandered over from the public park that bordered our property. The survey clearly showed the creek was ours, but I didn't want conflict. I let it go. The next day, it happened again. A family arrived, parents and two kids spreading a blanket near the water. The children splashed and laughed. I hesitated, then walked outside, forcing a smile. "Beautiful day," I said. The father barely glanced at me. Afternoon, I explained we'd just moved in, that I hadn't expected visitors back there. He studied me like I was the one intruding. "We've been coming here for years," he said. "The old owners didn't mind." I explained gently that the creek was part of our property now, that we wanted some privacy. His wife crossed her arms. "The park side is trash. This is the good part." They left eventually, but not before the woman turned back and said, "You might want to check with the town. This isn't just yours." By the weekend, the trickle became a flood. Groups showed up with coolers, folding tables, Bluetooth speakers. Music drifted through our yard. Laughter echoed against the house. When I asked them to leave, they argued. Some laughed. One man said, "Legal doesn't mean right." Another muttered, "You'll regret this." We put up no trespassing signs. They were bent and torn down within days. The sheriff shrugged. Neighbors were polite, but distant. One woman told us the creek had always belonged to everyone. Another said, "You bought the house, you bought the history." By midsummer, the crowds grew. Trash floated in the water. The laughter turned sharp, invasive. I stopped opening the blinds. Then came the notes. "Leave the creek alone, or leave town." Someone cut the wire we strung along the boundary. At night, flashlights flickered near the water. Voices whispered. When David shouted, they scattered like they'd rehearsed it. At town hall, an official sighed and said, "History creates expectations." That word, expectations, followed me everywhere. People stared at me in the grocery store. Our mailbox was smashed. Tires slashed. Another note appeared. "Watch your back." A man confronted me one evening while I watered plants. "You don't belong here," he said. "Keep pushing, and it'll get ugly." We locked the doors every night after that. Eventually, lawyers drained us dry. The town filed a claim. We settled, sold a strip of land. They fenced it, built a bridge, and named it Creekside Commons. The crowds returned, but stayed on their side. The yard is quiet now, peaceful, but peace never came back. Sometimes at night, when the wind shifts just right, the creek doesn't sound like water anymore. It sounds like voices, like laughter echoing from somewhere just beyond the fence, as if the land remembers, as if it's reminding me that ownership is fragile, that safety is temporary, and that sometimes no matter what the law says. The place you choose to call home may never truly be yours.